The Copa America had its inaugural edition in 1916 under the name of the South American Football Championship, consecrating Uruguay as the first champion on Argentine soil. Thus, the competition reaches its 48th edition in 2024 in the United States, and it is the oldest national team competition in the world among those that are not extinct, of course. The biggest champions are Argentina and Uruguay, tied with 15 titles, followed by Brazil, which has 9 cups raised. Yes, Brazil is the biggest champion of the World Cup, but in the Copa America they are well behind the other two brothers. However, it is possible to notice that the edition of the Copa America that has just started is not generating much engagement, which contrasts with the weight of the shirts that will take to the field. Today, here at Trave a Trave, I will try to explain to you the reasons why the appeal of the Copa America is not in keeping with its centuries-old tradition. One of the most pointed out points to explain such lack of interest is the irregular intermittence with which the editions take place, reducing the appeal through the lack of growing expectations that would be generated if it were a dispute every 4 years, as happens with the World Cup and the Euro. In the 2000s, there was an attempt to standardize the editions so that the editions took place every 3 years, being 2001, 2004, and 2007. However, the following editions took place every 4 years, being played in 2011 and 2015. After that, there was the World Cup America in 2016, 2019, and 2021, the latter of which was scheduled for 2020, postponed due to the global crisis faced at that time. Yes, we would have Copa America 2 years in a row. But anyone who thinks that this irregularity is recent and happens only due to specific interests of the confederations is mistaken, at least partially. Since its creation, the competition has been played in irregular periods, varying from 1 to 4 years between editions, with 2 of them taking place in the same year, in 1959. Speaking of the more recent past, other factors weigh against the oldest national team championship in dispute: the precarious organization and the lack of tact in relation to external factors. For example, Colombia faced a civil war in 2001 and, even so, CONMEBOL did not go back on its decision, maintaining it as the host country for that competition. This meant that Argentina did not even send its delegation to the Copa America. In 2021, still in the midst of the health crisis, the Copa America took place without an audience, in an unfavorable socio-political scenario in Brazil, which decided to host the event after the original venues, Colombia and Argentina, withdrew. We can question the need for this maneuver if we take into account that Brazil itself had hosted the previous edition in 2019. These factors, combined with precarious pitches, important teams that stop participating for external reasons or send alternative teams, a precarious organization, and even the inclusion of random teams from other continents, undermine the collective imagination, giving the idea of a somewhat amateur competition, meaningless and slot machine, with a low technical level. Furthermore, the non-standardization of the Copa America as a competition capable of uniting teams from all over the Americas makes the matches repetitive. South America has 10 teams affiliated with CONMEBOL, and they face each other very frequently in qualifiers and even in friendlies. Furthermore, there is no standardized dispute formula. Sometimes the groups are made up of 3 teams, sometimes 4 and even 5. The formula is constantly modified, culminating in the tournament's lack of identification. This particular edition, in 2024, also has other negative points, such as the overlapping calendar, generating a division of the spotlight with other competitions, such as the European Championship and the Brazilian Championship itself. It is true that the games will take place at different times. The Copa America games will be played between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. Brasilia. But the news and interactions on social media will be divided in such a way that, inevitably, the Copa America will take 2nd or 3rd place in the attention of those who follow and enjoy football. There are many Brazilian fans whose expectations were that the best athletes on their teams would not be called up, as these athletes would miss out on their clubs during the competition, in which an incredible 9 rounds will be played in 1 month. But even so, with so many reasons that really can and should make the Copa America a less important tournament than it should be, there are other qualities that qualify the competition for the audience. This edition will feature countries from all over America. This means that, in the first phase, there will be more relevant games than usual, in addition to having more groups with fewer teams, unlike the massive format of 2021. In Group A, the current world champion, Argentina, faces Chile in the opening game, in a group that includes Peru and Canada, the latter who made a discreet participation, although above their own expectations, in the last World Cup. In Group B, we have Mexico, Ecuador, and the good generation from Venezuela, who tend to fight for the two places. Group C pits the host team, the United States, against the renewed and promising Uruguayan team. Finally, in Group D, the Brazilian team will face Colombia, Costa Rica, and Paraguay. For the quarterfinals, the first two from each group qualify, crossing the first and second placed from Group A against B and from Group C against D. Being able to watch Lionel Messi on the field is always a great attraction, and it will be the first time since the World Cup title that the star will take to the field to compete in a World Cup for his team, playing lightly and without the weight of other occasions. After all, he already won the most important title. In the Brazilian team, the main attraction is the work of Dorival, who made a balanced selection that was very uncontested. Practically all the names on the list are undeniable, and the coach's work began very well in the friendlies against England and Spain. Another team worth paying attention to is Uruguay. It's Valverde, Darwin Núñez, Ronald Araujo, who I think is a little overrated. But that's okay. De Arrascaeta, De La Cruz, Rocher, and Varela, led by the laid-back Marcelo Bielsa. Certainly, they will also have an additional attraction in the competition. Colombia and Ecuador also have great players in big clubs and are very competitive teams. These factors will undoubtedly be seen on great pitches, with the games being treated as true events in many of the very modern stadiums that will be used in the 2026 World Cup, this being almost a test event. The event can bring back wonderful memories and others that are just as embarrassing, something that has generated memes for a long time. In 2011, Brazil also fell to Paraguay in the quarterfinals. In that game that was marked by hideous and inexplicable hits from Thiago Silva, Elano, Fred, and Andre Santos. In 2015, they fell once again in the quarterfinals, on penalties, and to the same Paraguay, but with the difference that this time some kicks were converted. It was not pleasant, but far from being the worst chapter of Brazilian participation in the history of the Copa America. But what was seen the following year, in the Centenary edition, was historic. In a weak group, Brazil only beat the very weak Haitian team, drawing goalless with Ecuador and losing in the last round to Peru, sealing elimination in the first round. Phase of the competition. Truly absurd. It is worth remembering that the team only scored goals against Haiti, and it was this performance that culminated in Dunga's dismissal and Tait's job began. But, obviously, the five-time champion team does not live solely on fiascos. The 1989 edition, played on Brazilian soil, was won by the team at Maracana, being the first relevant title since winning the 1970 World Cup, 19 years earlier, and involved a very strong charge. It was the beginning of a generation that would conquer absolutely everything with hopscotch in the following decade. In addition to the editions won with spectacular teams in the 90s, the 2004 edition was notable for having a completely alternative team, which was still very strong and showed the strength of that generation. Gustavo Neri, Edu, Alex, Luis Fabiano, Renato, and Luizao were not players with much space even on the bench at that time. So much so that they were not in the 2002 and 2006 World Cups, and even so they reached the final in a tense game against Argentina, where the brothers were winning 2-1 until the last minutes of the game, with provocations from the entire team, of course, including Carlitos Tevez. But the draw came with a great goal from Adriano in the last minute, taking the game to penalties, where Julio Cesar shone, guaranteeing Brazil the title. In the following edition, another victory over the Argentines, this time a resounding 3-0, with goals from Julio Baptista, Daniel Alves, and Ayala, own goal. This is the Copa America. Unpredictable, full of classics, and a lot of history. No matter which team you have more sympathy for, it is a championship taken seriously by the players, where anything can happen, especially among the continent's big teams. In addition to the technical aspect of observing work and new potential, it is an opportunity to enjoy South American football in its essence. Close games, rivalries, countless relevant players at international level, and of course, that fan base completely blind to the team they love. The players here have always enriched world football, and practically every team you've seen play wouldn't be the same without these athletes, and that's their competition.